men off fighting over another man. They are Henry, who is cynical and sharp-tongued, and Alex, who is very popular with women. They are both trying to win the favor of the handsome Steve. All three work as executives at an advertising company. On the surface, they seem to be at odds, but in reality, they are close roommates. However, Alex quickly shifts his focus to his first love, Rose, who has just returned to the country. He asks his roommates for advice, unaware that another man is secretly watching their every move from a corner. Alex, usually a master of romance, becomes quite clumsy in front of Rose and immediately makes her angry. Unable to watch any longer, Henry kicks him hard and decides to step in and help. Henry invites Rose to join him and Alex for a meal, hoping to create an opportunity for them. But Rose soon notices that Alex and Henry have very similar tastes, and this unspoken understanding between them makes her start shipping them as a couple. Alex, believing Henry's advice is working, asks him to help pick out a gift for Rose again. However, when Alex speaks too close to him, Henry becomes flustered, his ears turning red. Seeing his reaction, Alex teases, "We're both men, no need to be shy." He even pulls Henry's ear to compare the size. In the end, Rose throws the flowers Alex gave her into the trash, which seriously deflates his confidence. However, before Henry can console him, Alex bounces back. He's not the type to be easily discouraged. Over the next week, he secretly observes Rose's preferences and learns that she is very interested in BL topics. Knowing nothing about BL, Alex decides to claim that he also likes it to impress her, but this only makes Rose more convinced that Alex likes men. It's only when Steve explains that BL stands for boys love, that Alex collapses in shock. Meanwhile, Steve feels slightly feverish and takes a leave of absence to rest at home. Upon arriving, he finds the door ajar and mistakenly thinks he forgot to lock it. Exhausted, he falls asleep, unaware that someone has broken in and is watching him. While Steve sleeps, the intruder sneaks up and kisses his lips, whispering, "You will belong to me." It isn't until Henry comes home and smells something strange that Steve realizes someone has entered. Alex, however, doubts Henry's keen sense of smell and even challenges him to sniff himself, using the opportunity to bite Henry. Henry angrily retorts, "You're no different from a dog," but Alex doesn't care, as he's excited about Rose inviting him out for dinner. What Alex doesn't know is that Rose's invitation is actually to formally reject him. In order to maintain their relationship, Alex pretends that his crush isn't Rose but Henry. Rose immediately becomes excited upon hearing this, even adding Alex as a friend to help him with his love life. Alex, thrilled that Rose added him, invites his roommates to dinner. Steve, who can't hold his liquor, soon gets drunk, and Henry has to help him home. However, this angers the man who has been following Steve and he punches Henry. Luckily, Alex arrives just in time and picks up the necklace the man left behind. When Steve sees the necklace, he is stunned. It belongs to his brother, David. Steve confronts David, demanding to know why he hurt his friend. David bluntly admits that he doesn't like anyone getting close to Steve because he likes him. Although they are not biological brothers, Steve has always considered David as his brother and believes David's feelings are just a sibling's affection. Steve pats David on the head like when they were younger, telling him to apologize to his friends. Meanwhile, Rose devises a plan to help Alex win her heart. The first step is to deliberately create physical contact. Alex reluctantly knocks over a cup of water and wipes Henry's pants, accidentally touching a sensitive spot. Both are embarrassed, but Rose is thrilled and even records the moment. Henry angrily demands to know what Alex is trying to do, and Alex admits, "I'm doing this to get closer to Rose." The second step of the plan is for Rose to have Alex kiss Henry. Henry strongly resists, but Alex insists that it's not necessary to actually kiss him. He just needs to stage the kiss to get a photo for Rose. However, just as Alex leans in towards Henry, Steve suddenly opens the door. In his panic, Alex ends up kissing Henry for real, and the situation becomes extremely awkward. Steve decides to take David to apologize to his friends in person. However, when Steve finds David at the library, he discovers that David has fallen asleep at the table. Rather than disturb him, Steve stands beside him, blocking the harsh sunlight. When David wakes up, he happily hugs Steve and follows him to Henry's place. Alex, furious at David for hurting Henry, almost loses control, but Henry stops him and suggests a boxing match to release their anger. Alex quickly knocks David to the ground, which makes Steve heartbroken. David, in pain, asks Steve to comfort him by singing to him like when they were children. Steve still sees him as a child and gently pats his head. Meanwhile, Rose directs Alex to take the third step in her plan, publicly confessing his love for Henry. Alex has no choice but to hug and wall slam Henry in public, and Henry reluctantly plays along. Rose is satisfied and agrees to pretend to be Alex's girlfriend to make Henry jealous. Alex's plan finally seems to be working, but before he can celebrate, Rose asks him an awkward question: whether he's the top or bottom in bed. Alex lies, claiming he's the top, but when Henry finds out that Alex spread the rumor that he's the bottom, he can't take it and argues with Alex over who is actually the top. Steve, exasperated, receives a message from his brother David asking if Steve will accompany him to the beach for his birthday. David's mother warns David to stop indulging his feelings, as she fears David's obsession will only lead to heartbreak. But David insists that he has been serious about his feelings for a long time. He's saved up enough money, and even though he's under 20, he is fully capable of providing for Steve. David's mother realizes just how deep his feelings go, but she reminds him that Steve's father will never approve of their relationship. David, however, is determined, telling her not to worry, as he plans to change everything after his birthday. On his birthday, David makes a wish that the person he loves will always be happy. Steve jokes that, as his brother, he didn't even know David had someone he liked. David replies that there's much Steve doesn't know about him, and then turns into a bartender, mixing a special cocktail for him called Lover. Steve, impressed by his bartending skills, drinks too much and passes out at the bar. David takes Steve back to the hotel, kisses him, and confesses, "The person I love is you." Drunk, Steve replies, "That's great, because I love you too." Overcome with passion, David begins kissing Steve eagerly and strips him, kissing his way down from his neck to his abdomen. Steve wakes up to the shocking realization that he has slept with his brother, David. This revelation throws him into a state of turmoil. Alex and Henry rush to ask what happened, and upon learning the truth, they decide to teach David a lesson. But David follows Steve into his home, kissing him and confessing that his feelings are not a passing impulse. He genuinely wants to be with him. Steve, furious, slaps him and reminds him that they are brothers. But David insists that he never saw Steve as a brother, which breaks Steve's heart. He has always wanted to be a good brother to David, but now everything seems shattered. Alex, witnessing this, kicks David out of the house. Steve believes it is his own sexuality that has led David astray, and he resolves to correct David's feelings. Henry has surpassed his annual performance targets, and the vice president personally celebrates with him. However, Henry's drink is spiked with a drug, and fortunately, Alex arrives just in time. Henry, under the drug's influence, uncontrollably hugs Alex. Alex has no choice but to take him to the bathroom to sober up, but Henry, feeling uncomfortable, strips off his clothes and even starts masturbating. Alex finds himself unable to face Henry as he gets short of breath whenever he's near him. Henry has no memory of what happened that night, but he notices Alex's strange behavior and decides to offer to be Alex's boyfriend. Alex becomes flustered, but Henry quickly explains that his plan is to pretend to be Alex's lover to help him pursue Rose. This explanation makes Alex feel heartbroken, as it was never what he wanted. Henry, confused by Alex's reaction, asks, "Isn't this what you always wanted?" Steve was convinced that something must have happened between the two that night. As he was speculating aimlessly, he received a photo from David, a selfie of him standing on the rooftop. This immediately alarmed Steve and he rushed up to the roof, only to find that David wasn't trying to commit suicide, but rather wanted to make sure Steve didn't purposely ignore him. David then confessed his love for Steve. He revealed that he had fallen for Steve the first time he saw him at the age of 6. However, Steve, upon hearing this, believed that David had mistaken his dependence on him for love. David, on the other hand, bluntly pointed out that Steve was just a coward, pretending not to be gay because he was afraid of disappointing his father. Steve was shocked as his facade was exposed, but David assured him that he would handle everything to prove his love for him. Meanwhile, Alex became increasingly confused about his feelings for Henry and sought advice from Steve. Steve bluntly told him that he might actually be in love with Henry. To confirm his feelings, Alex decided to introduce Henry to a female friend and observe his own reaction. However, when Alex saw Henry chatting happily with the woman, his heart sank, and he realized that he had fallen deeply in love with Henry. Steve assumed Alex was troubled because he had developed feelings for a man. To his surprise, Alex suddenly became elated, as he had finally discovered his true love and resolved to pursue Henry. Henry also noticed Alex's changes. From initially keeping his distance, Alex now treated him with unusual attentiveness, buying him cakes, wiping cream from the corner of his mouth, and even showing off his muscle selfies. All of this made Henry subconsciously wonder if Alex might be losing his mind. One night, Steve stumbled upon David's diary and discovered that it was filled with meticulous records about him. Deeply moved by David's devotion, Steve began to open his heart to him and invited David on a hot spring trip. David thoughtfully prepared fresh fruit juices, which made Henry envious. Not to be outdone, Alex took the chance to fasten Henry's seatbelt, bringing the two of them unusually close. This made Henry feel nervous, and he pretended to check himself in the mirror to calm down, only to catch David giving him a meaningful look from the back seat. Henry mistakenly thought Alex was trying to win his forgiveness, but he had no idea that Alex was secretly consulting David on how to pursue him. Taking David's advice, Alex invited Henry to bathe together and seized the opportunity to have Henry touch his abs. During the bath, Alex even put his arm around Henry's shoulder. Furious, Henry demanded to know what Alex was trying to do, only for Alex to lean in and kiss him, that able to hold back as he confessed his love. Shocked, Henry jumped up from his seat, but Alex pushed him against the wall and expressed his feelings. It was all too sudden for Henry to process, and he decided to distract himself by going on a date with a woman to escape his confusion. However, during the date, Henry found himself restless, with his mind completely preoccupied with Alex. In the end, he couldn't hold it in and confessed his true thoughts to his date. Furious, she punched him but still encouraged him to face his feelings bravely. At this point, Steve, under David's persistent pursuit, finally decided to be with him. However, their embrace was caught by Steve's father, and David bravely took full responsibility. Faced with his father's anger, David was kicked out of the house. Steve, unaware of what had happened, continued to be troubled by the conflict between Henry and Alex. Meanwhile, Henry's mood completely crumbled when he saw a photo of Alex and Rose hugging. He angrily scolded his subordinates for spreading rumors. Things only worsened when a hotel video of Alex and Rose was uploaded to the company chat, and the news quickly spread. Henry, drowning his frustration in alcohol, openly confessed that he liked Alex. Alex, overjoyed, was thrilled by this revelation. However, Henry quickly added that he didn't want to be the third wheel in their relationship. What Henry didn't know was that all the rumors about Alex and Rose were part of Alex's plan to provoke Henry's jealousy. With that, Alex kissed Henry passionately. The next morning, Henry woke up in bed, feeling confused, as he found himself lying very close to Alex. Alex, angered, asked if Henry had forgotten the confession from the previous night, to which Henry responded with a kiss, showing that he remembered. However, poor Rose soon became the center of public gossip, with colleagues at the company questioning her inappropriate relationship with her boss. Thankfully, Alex quickly clarified the situation and publicly declared that the person he liked was Henry. Although some colleagues remained skeptical, Henry kissed Alex on the spot and posted the kiss photo in the company chat, shocking everyone, especially Rose. She watched in disbelief as the ship she had hoped for finally became real, so excited that she almost jumped with joy. Steve, meanwhile, learned that David had been kicked out of his house by his father. His mother encouraged him not to care about his father's judgment and to be brave in being true to himself. Although she wasn't his biological mother, she had already considered Steve her son. Steve ultimately decided to return home to take care of his father, which allowed him to free up his apartment for Alex and Henry to live together. This made Alex so happy that he almost jumped with joy, as he longed for a deeper relationship with Henry. However, Henry felt that Alex's pursuit was only about getting him into bed, which angered him. In fact, he even punched Alex in frustration. Though Henry rejected the idea of sleeping with Alex, he secretly searched for advice on what to do before engaging in a same-sex relationship. At the same time, David asked Steve to make a final decision, to be his lover or continue as his brother. Steve expressed that he didn't want to lose David as a brother, which made David feel a pang of sadness. But then Steve added that he was greedy and wanted to be both his brother and lover. After saying this, Steve kissed David. However, as they became more intimate, Steve quickly realized that despite David's remarkable intellect, he was completely clueless when it came to expressing emotional needs. So Steve took it upon himself to show David how to properly ask for a kiss from a lover. He leaned in and softly requested a kiss. David quickly picked up on it, and Steve was stirred, kissing him passionately. In a conversation with his father, David firmly declared his feelings for Steve and successfully persuaded his father. Meanwhile, Steve's mother was worried that her naive stepson might be deceived by her own scheming biological son. Steve reassured her, telling her that David truly loved him, and there was no need for her to worry. One day, Henry received a package and his face suddenly changed. Alex suspected that the vice president was threatening him, because he had once threatened to take revenge on them. Alex strongly urged Henry to open the package, and it turned out that there was lubricating oil inside. Henry felt extremely embarrassed. However, the thing they were worried about still happened. The vice president framed Alex for embezzling public funds and got him suspended from work. In order to resolve the crisis, Henry secretly went to the vice president to plead with him by sleeping with him. Alex was furious upon hearing this and angrily found Henry, who was helping the vice president undress, took him back home and fiercely declared that Henry could only belong to him, then forcefully kissed him. While kissing him, he explained to Alex that he never intended to sleep with the vice president but was planning to take compromising photos of him to use as leverage. Alex breathed a sigh of relief, as he had already uncovered evidence of the vice president's misconduct. The vice president's wrongdoings were ultimately exposed. Alex was reinstated at work, and the entire company celebrated the victory. At midnight, Steve was working overtime at the office, designing a wedding banquet for a same-sex couple. David brought some late-night snacks to him, only to find that Steve had fallen asleep. David gently covered him with a coat, but suddenly, Steve grabbed him and pulled him onto the desk, kissing him tenderly. The two became entwined in each other's arms. The wedding banquet designed by Steve received widespread attention in the industry, and the guests raised their glasses in celebration of the newlyweds. Meanwhile, Alex seized the moment to drag Henry to their new home, announcing that he had bought a wedding house for them. However, he had become broke in the process and would likely need Henry to support him from now on. Although Henry pretended to be angry, he felt deeply grateful inside. Together, they were finally stepping into a shared future.